Consult professionals that may know about it so they can give you some feedback. And there's nothing wrong that they may agree, they may not agree. But at the end of the day, branding comes from the heart, I guess, because you know exactly what you want to do with your podcast.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
And we're back with another episode of the podcast on podcasting. And I'm your host, Adam Adams, Adam A. Adams. And I am reading some ratings and reviews. If any of you remember from episode 100, I can't believe it's like 30 or 40 episodes back already. It's nuts how fast we're getting new episodes. But back then I brought up that we were going to be doing a couple of reads of people's ratings and reviews. And so with that said, I'm going to be reading one rating or written review on each episode that I can. And of course, I did have some stomach surgery. My appendix came out, and then it was the holidays. The kids were out of school. So I'm catching up on this, but we did actually get a winner, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to our new client who doesn't have to pay, who's Matt Cummings. Matt, that's freaking awesome, man. All you did is wrote a rating, an honest written review, and then when you heard me read it live, you emailed me right away. And basically that's the rules, guys. If you want to be added to this and win some services for your podcast. Now, Matt Cummings, interesting quick story is he didn't even have a show. He hasn't yet launched his show, but he's been listening to this show to get more ideas and be able to make sure that he can launch in the best way. And he just got 6 months of free marketing and editing and consulting to launch his brand new podcast. And we're editing his podcast for a whole 6 months for free and marketing it. It's amazing. I'm so stoked to be working with you, Matt. Congratulations on your win. So with that said, I want to read somebody else's review. Now, just so you're super clear, the people that were in the running in the first place was Matt Cummings, Taco, Jesse, and Donetta 85C were the ones that we had already read on air. And Matt was the one who won. So I'm just super, super happy for you, Matt. Today, I'm going to be reading Stacy Katrina's written review. And this came from November 11th, but it's going to be counting on the December one. So basically, we're taking all of the ones that came out in December, and we're going to be reading those over the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to be spinning the wheel. Now, Stacy, because I'm reading hers right now, she automatically has one raffle ticket, if you will, one entry. And Stacy, Katrina, when you actually screenshot this review, just email me at team@growyourshow.com. Well, then you're getting 5 more. That's how Matt won, actually, because he had 6 entries. And so he had a huge chance to win against those other 3 or 4, the other 4. So Stacy, make sure you do that. Make sure that you give your written review, take a screenshot of it now, send it to team@growyourshow.com. But what Stacy said is the title is Great Show for a New Podcaster. And then in the body, it says, I'm new to the world of podcasting, and I've been enjoying listening to Adam. There have been great resources shared, awesome takeaways, and lovely guests. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and being so easy to listen to. Links in the show notes are always helpful too. Stacy, I really appreciate it. You've just gotten an entry. If you want 5 more entries, you just take the screenshot of this, email us, team@growyourshow.com. Now, if you have not given a rating and a written review, feel free to. It does not need to be a 5-star review, right? It's just an honest review. If you just leave an honest review, tell us what you think about the show, what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of, boom, you automatically have at least one. And when I read your written review on the air, you just, to get 5 more entries, you just take a screenshot of that and email me. And that way we can put you in and make sure you're going to win. So awesome. Let's jump into the episode. I don't want to take too much time on reading these reviews, but I do want to spend enough time. So let's jump into the content. Today's going to be really cool. We're going to be talking about cohesive branding for podcasts. And we've got an awesome guy to help us out with that. his name is Jesus Hernandez, and he has is it called an alter ego? What is it called when another identity? What is the name for that?
So many people may call it alter ego,
Okay.
drag personality. You can say that. It's fine to say that too.
Okay. But you've got another personality, one where on social media, I actually thought that it was a female. I was like, oh, she's so beautiful. That's what I thought.
That means that I'm doing a good job.
That means you're doing a good job. And it's Yeveah Altieri, right?
Correct.
That's the other. And Yeveah is, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said it was like the Hebrew name of Jesus.
Exactly. It's a kind of quite a Hebrew traduction of Jesus. Like it looks on the Bible actually. And then Altieri is a last name that I got from a specific sign in the south of Puerto Rico where I saw there was a construction and the mayor had that last name. I never knew it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty. And I use it.
Love it. And one thing remarkable about Jesus or Yeveah is that he's been doing drag in multiple different countries and competing in like Puerto Rico and where else? I know there's a few other places.
I have competed in the United States, in Puerto Rico, in Costa Rica, and in England. Yeah.
And you founded Miss Gay Puerto Rico Incorporated.
That's correct. It's a nonprofit organization that I founded in Puerto Rico. I'm still running it.
So, and this is part of your life, and you've had a cohesive branding yourself with your podcast. And the podcast uses the name of your, I don't want to say alter ego if I'm using the wrong terminology.
We pretty much use my drag persona. How people pretty much remember me from like the times that I was the most active doing drag. So in Puerto Rico, there is a culture when there's a pageant, you have to do a presentation that they give you like a specific theme. And that year it was chess games. And I selected a specific piece, but I finished my presentation saying like that I am Yeveah Altieri with initials, well, all of this in Spanish, with the initials Y and A that together said ya, so which is now. So let's start now the competition with Yeveah Altieri. So that's the branding that I got of my name.
So awesome. And additionally, the podcast is supportive of the LGBT community as well.
That's correct.
When did you launch the podcast?
Actually, it was January, if I'm not mistaken, 11 of 2021 of this year. So it has been about 6 months now.
Cool. And it looks like it's already got some decent traction. I mean, there's lots of times where you got like tons of reviews on like February 27th and then tons more like on March 4th and so on. What have you been doing before we get into the cohesive branding? Because I think that's important and it serves all of us. Because whatever we are, we own it. We put it in the beginning, the middle, the end. And I actually just published an episode. I know this is going to come out in a minute from then, but I recently published, I think it was episode 50, about letting your listener down. And the main reason that people are letting their listener down is that they are frankly saying that they're going to do this, but then they bring up the wrong kind of content. And so this cohesive branding is like the biggest mistake that I see podcasters make. So when I said to Jesus, I said, Jesus, what do you really in your heart feel like you need to give to a brand new or aspiring podcaster? And cohesive branding is what you mentioned, and it's resonate with me. I'm not fluent in Spanish, so I can't see everything about what your podcast is about. Like I can see it, but I can't translate it. The LGBTIQ plus, that's obvious. I know what that means, but everything else, since it's in Spanish, maybe you could tell me what the goal is with your podcast and how you're continuing through with cohesive branding on your show.
So basically, I moved from Puerto Rico in 2017 to the United States. So this podcast is a way for me to stay in touch with those that have moved to the United States due to like economical, financial reasons, getting a job here, or even after Hurricane Maria, where many people were displaced because of what happened in Puerto Rico. And after that, we as people who live here get in touch with many other Latinos that are also interested into the same kind of art of drag performance and all of that. So my whole goal with it is to maintain that communication with them and maintain alive myself as somebody that they look for. So for a very long time, let's say from 2010 to 2015, I was very active into competitions and all of that. But then I fell into pursuing my doctorate degree. So I needed to stop to focus into that kind of things and pursue my career. But the main objective for them is to understand and visualize the drag art. That is not wrong to do drag. You can do drag and still be a person that can contribute to society in many other ways. I found a way on how the doing drag was going to help me to be the professional person that I am today. For example, my own mom told me that, oh, you are doing drag, you should be careful a little bit of doing it because that may probably hurt your professional career. And I was like, oh, okay. So coming from, some places that they do not accept that in the island because they are not that exposed to listen this kind of topics, pretty much that I am helping people now through my voice to say like, hey, as long you are focusing what are your goals, it doesn't matter what you do. You never know how at the end of the day they're gonna couple together to really give you a space where you're gonna be working, doing what you love as a professional, but also using those tools that maybe your drag career may have given you. An example of that, I was in Chicago until past October 2020, and for that I was about 4 years. But my whole job, I landed there because I'm an epidemiologist, and also I was a drag performer for a very long time that they met me during those times to be like the Puerto Rican People's Parade Queen in Chicago during those times. So, and after that, I became their Public Health Initiatives Director because they know that I'm very well aware of the problems that are happening within the LGBT community and my academic preparation. So it was great for them to hire me, having this specific other knowledge within the LGBT community that suffers a lot of like HIV incidents and many other problems that may happen to them. So that's exactly the podcast about, to say it's okay to do many other things. Let's talk about and discuss topics that will really benefit all of us, that at the end of the day, that will give them strength and empower them to continue their activities, no matter if they're part of the LGBT community, and on top of being part of the LGBT community, doing things inside the LGBT community that might be probably stigmatized outside.
A lot to unravel there. I want to find out, because I know that you're from Puerto Rico and you speak more than one language, being bilingual, and now you're here in the US. Which language is the podcast in? Is it in Spanish? Is it in English? Is it a bilingual podcast? And then once answer which language it's in, can you share the reason why it's not in the other language?
It is in Spanish. All of it is in Spanish so far. I have thought to move into English, but I think there is a huge need to do my podcast in Spanish because in Puerto Rico and Latinos that I know around all Latin America, they did not know that even in their iPhones, they have this app that they can actually listen to this, because they just thought it was a default app that it's there and they never touch it. And it happened to myself. I didn't know that. And then I related that with people when I was promoting my podcast, that they didn't know that they could listen to me through their phones, that it was so easy to find me. So I think there's a huge need to continue growing the culture of Spanish speaking podcast. Many times there's people that move to the US that not necessarily will speak English. They will need to stay in touch and get some kind of like sources to like stay mentally sane within these times and find something to do. And I think I could have do it in English, but it will be an easier path for me to probably get some audience. But at the same time, I wanted a challenge and to grow the culture of people that actually listen to podcasts in Spanish. And that's how I have maintained it. And that's why it's really important to me to maintain it that way for now. I have had the opportunity of record some episodes in English, but I said like, no, not yet. I don't think this is the moment. I know people that if I'm not publishing on a Thursday, on Friday morning, they're like asking me what is the episode of yesterday. And it's like, sometimes I may do it on Thursday and sometimes on Friday, depending, the charge a lot of work of that week. But by that way, that they're looking for you. That they are actually hoping for me to keep the promise that I said the other week that I was going to make for this week. So that is a way to maintain them engaged. And I don't think that I can let them down with changing the whole kind of format that I have as of now, because so far I have people there waiting for me.
Thank you for going into that. And I'm wondering, another thing, you are a doctor. So, and I believe you studied, is it epidemiology?
Epidemiology, epidemics, like COVID.
Crazy. Well, hey, I wonder if we need to cut this out, let me know. But I wonder if you believe that COVID was man-made or not.
Well, that's let's say it's an ethical standpoint that that question is not the first time that somebody made me this question because of my preparation, of course. But many times when you are at school, you study the course of nature of many other diseases and things that happened like this before in the past. And I prefer in a responsible way to say that it wasn't like that I have my doubts within the whole process, trying to understand it. Yes, I do have it, like any other human being that may question like their faith, for instance. But let's say that for now, as a professional, my best advice is to understand that this happened as an accident, and we had to, go over with the science as the way that we have been growing.
So, Jesus, I'm a brand new podcaster. I want a podcast. I've been thinking about podcasting. I don't know where to start. Where does cohesive branding come into play, and how do I do it?
Well, I learned specifically that one of the things is, first of all, the name of your brand, of your branding, of your podcast. Will people take it as a catchy thing or not? Do you have something that people know you already? How did you manage to mix that with your podcast? So by that way, you can stay people on track, listening to you, and at least listen to your first episode. So by that way, you can hook them up in the whole pipeline on the next episodes. The next thing is like, what is going to be the palette of colors that you're going to use for your promotional materials and all of that? Does that palette resonate to what your podcast is about? Did you research what every color will mean to people? Or is it like the concept that you want to put out there? What do you want at the end of the day? Like, is it your face? Is it like an animation out there that will represent you? So that kind of things will make a cohesive branding, as long as you are very sure what you want to project to other people at the end of the day, and what kind of listener is the listener that you want to have to follow you within the publication of your episodes. And I think those are very important things. But all of this is possible if you actually put yourself together in a way that you're organized. Let's say, okay, so this day I'm gonna plan this type of things. I can get and go some kind of like feedback from professionals that may know about it. I can consult this. What do they think about this specific graphic design that I just made? So they can give you some feedback. And there's nothing wrong that at the end of the day, they may agree, they may not agree. But at the end of the day, also, your cohesive branding comes from the heart, I guess, because you know exactly what you want to do with your podcast. And nobody else knows better about your topic that you know how to develop in an episode better than you. And it's like I always, when I was in a science fair competing when I was a little kid, my teachers always told me that the judges does not know what you did on your research. So they're listening to you. So what it counts is that you present to them the way that you know, and if something is a oops, you just say I'm sorry and continue. And in this way, let's rebrand it and continue.
Okay. Well, I want to argue the point, throw a counterpoint or question at least. For you may have had an easy time saying, this is my heart, this is what I need to give to the world. For me, with I've had more than one podcast. So the first podcast was like, I have a purpose, a reason behind doing this podcast. It's so I can attract private capital for my real estate deals and add value to the right people. And so that they say, I want to put my money with Adam. And with this podcast, it was a clear decision as well. It was, I have a business that supports podcasters. We help podcasters grow and go to the next level, and we help them get a bigger audience. We do all the back office stuff so they don't have to do any of that. And so it makes a lot of sense for me to then add value to that person because, 1% of them may say, all right, I need someone to work with. Who should I hire? Oh yeah, well, Adam Adams does this. I'll just hire Adam. And so it can support me to grow my business. But I've spoken with many people that reached out to me and said, I want you to help me start a podcast. And I'm like, great. What do you want it to be about? What are your ideas, your thoughts of having a title? And they're like, I have no clue. I don't know what I want to do. I just know I want to have a podcast. I have no clue. I just know I kind of want it in this realm, but maybe this or this or this. And a lot of people struggle with finding a way to narrow down what they're going to be doing on the podcast. Some stay way too broad because they're afraid of losing listeners and they don't know which of the niche ideas they should focus on to get either the best results or whatever. And so, Jesus, I feel like there's got to be at least one person listening who's like, it's not as easy as he thinks. So if that's who's in the room with us today and they're like, I'm not so sure about what I need to do my podcast about. I'm not so sure about what the cohesive branding should be for my show. In your opinion, Jesus, is it like obvious, but they're resisting it? Or is it not obvious and is there something you can do to kind of help them go in that direction?
I think that the very first thing that they should do if they don't have any idea, and it was not my case, but I use this kind of technique when I'm not that sure of what I'm going to do in some kind of situations to take a decision, is to make a brainstorm of ideas. And then break out those ideas in what is feasible and what is not feasible and put into in balance, like, do I enjoy to talk about this or I do not enjoy to talk about that? Because at the end of the day, you have to show some joy of what you are really recording for the people, because people can feel what are your emotions through what you are actually saying. So I think that if there is somebody out there that does not have that kind of like a specific decision yet, they should look out to professionals to sit down and definitely talk about it. I did it myself not that long ago, and I was able to understand many other tips around that helped me. And at the beginning, I was resisting myself a little bit to pay some amount of money because I thought that I could do it myself, but not necessarily have all the competencies that have to do with like putting together things that are out of my reach. Like, I'm an epidemiologist. I'm not a graphic designer at all. I'm not a person that do strategic marketing or something like that. All of that, I have been also learning it through the through the way of developing and seeing that, okay, at the beginning, I didn't get that much listeners. What I need to do to get people engaged and involved and for them to follow me on Apple, follow me on Spotify. So what I need to do. So that's why I went beyond and I took some classes. I still getting those classes yet because I haven't finished the whole course. But definitely what I have learned so far have actually led me to change things within episodes. So if you hear my very first episodes compared to the last one, there's gonna be a huge change. Probably also in my tone, in the organization of them, and how I actually start them. How did I engage my audience during the very first 30 seconds to 1 minute? So by that way, they still, they're with me and bear with me within each episode and listen to the end. And that's why many times I do kind of like catchy things at the end of an episode to see if they write me through Instagram, because that means that I know that they'll listen through the end. So, and that kind of things, I think, is the way to do it. There are professionals out there that knows a way, a great way on how to do all of this. So there's not necessarily, don't feel that you are alone doing this, and do not feel also that you can do everything, because not necessarily that will be the case, and it happened to me.
Not wearing all the hats is critically important. Yes. For at least 99% of podcasters. There's way too many podcasters that try to do it all. They're not good at it all. And as a result, it doesn't end up working for them. And I love that you brought it up. I don't remember if you said it specifically to wearing all the hats, but the point is that there's a ton of jobs. And with the most successful companies out there, they have hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of employees, because the more people that you have and each person can stay in their lane, you're more likely to have success. So the more growth that you want for your podcast can probably be achieved by bringing on people to do some of those roles, whether it's editing or marketing or outreach or publishing or whatever. It could be really beneficial for you to get success by hiring out a lot of that stuff. Hey, Jesus, I was wondering, because with me in particular, when you said to me a moment ago that if you listen to the very first episode and the very most recent episode, they are going to be very different. And it started to make me think of my journey as a podcaster. And I know that my first 30 or so episodes, and I know that could be overwhelming to someone listening. 30 episodes? Are you kidding me? That's how long it took you, and you still didn't feel like you were all the way there? Anyway, with my first 30-ish episodes,
I have only 22 so far, so I'm in that range yet.
I felt a little uncomfortable in my own skin. I felt nervous. I wanted to impress people. I wanted to be better than I am. I wanted to be more of an expert. I was self-conscious about some of those things. And it wasn't until maybe episode 100 plus until I started to think, man, all I have to do is just be myself. Just pretend like I'm hanging out with my brother. Just talk the way that I would talk with my brother. Just tell stories the way that I would speak with a buddy having a beer or something like that. And when I made the shift, it ended up really increasing our listener base for the podcast. And I'm curious with you, because if you are LGBTQIL+++, all of the letters, there's a good chance that part of your life you struggled with identity, you avoided telling people, you thought maybe you would be judged on something from your mom even, or your dad, or your grandma, or who knows, right? society, guys at school who say, oh, that guy's gay, but they're just saying it as being derogatory. With that said, all of that said, I'm wondering about your journey of simply being yourself on your podcast, owning it. Did you crush it in the very beginning, or had you learned that earlier on in your life?
I think that there's many situations. Like, for instance, when I was 18 years old, I lost my sister due to a domestic violence event. And she passed away, and pretty much I became a parent right away of my nephew that was 11 months. I already opened to my mother at that moment about my current sexual orientation. So it took me guts to do it at that specific point. But after that, to face real life, to become an independent person and trying to pursue my dreams into my career goals and all of that. And on top of that, having and actually being in drag actually was because I was in a relationship. I got out of the relationship, and that was my refuge to kind of do something to entertain myself and not think about it. So it is okay to find ways to make yourself comfortable and also open to people about it. So when the very first trailer of my podcast, I talk about a specific of this, like very brief, because I want people to understand that I want to be myself all the time. I don't allow myself to try to project something different that is not. That's why sometimes, and when I have a specific emotional level of something, I express it because that's probably going to resonate with someone else that is listening to me. And that makes me more human. And that will make people to see that I'm not that different, that I'm completely related, a person that they can relate. And they will continue to follow me because they may see that the same situations that I'm going through are some situations that may happen to them too. And I believe I did that because not that long ago, where it happened about almost 2 years ago, I ended a relationship of 9 years. And during those 9 years, I was doing drag and all of that, but he never accepted me to do that. So I always have to do that and leave my stuff at my drag mom house. I never could have anything about my drag, my wigs, my costumes or anything at home because he never understood that and he never wanted to accept me like that. So when I'm in another relationship now that I got engaged actually 2 months ago.
Congrats.
Thank you. This person that I'm now.
Who proposed to who, by the way?
He proposed me in Puerto Rico. We were on a vacation in Puerto Rico, and he proposed me by the bay there. And it was so cool. Beautiful. Cool. So, and this person was more familiarized with the concept of being drag and all of that, and what does that entail? Not necessarily the person that dresses as a girl or drag for do a show and entertainment. It's because the person wants to be a girl. No, that is not the case for many of us. So they have to understand those differences. And I'm a man, and he is a man, and that doesn't have to affect our relationship. So those are the kind of things that I said at the very beginning in my trailer, because I was able, and now I have, let's say, the guts to say, this happened to me being gay already with another gay person too, that was discriminating myself because of being drag. And you may think that may not happen, but that thing happens inside their own community. So, and that's why my podcast was that way, to start, set up a space that they can feel that they can get out anything. And for myself too. And many times I just take it to vent at the same time. So that's why I love to do it.
So interesting. I definitely have always wanted to help people, support people, make people happy, and make people impressed my whole life. And I remember on the beginning episodes of my podcast, just the challenges that I had of even understanding how to be myself. And it sounds like you cared about this piece so much that in your very first trailer episode, you got it all out.
Yes.
And there's so many experiences in my life with different churches and people that I was dating where the beginning of the relationship was we're perfect, or I'm perfect, or I have no mistakes, or whatever. And then you learn that they're just been hiding all the mistakes. And it seems like that's when you lose the most amount of credibility with your sweetheart, with your audience, with your, like, if you're a church pretending like you've never done anything wrong and you're hiding all of that. And we find that there's like a dark past with priests or bishops or whatever, like prophets or apostles or anything, but it just never was shared with us ahead of time. It really hurts. But when someone says, like, let's just pretend we're dating, someone says, hey, just FYI, I pick my nose, I fart sometimes, I'll try not to. You're like, I like this person, like, hey, they're just shooting it straight. I feel like I can drop my guard. I feel like I can appreciate them for who they are. And if they ever catch you picking your nose or farting, then they can be like, dude, I knew that. Like, you told me from the get-go. No biggie, man. Yeah. So our podcasts, as we're becoming a beginning podcaster, like, do you have anything, Jesus, that would help someone if they were struggling like I was, of just finding a way to not sound so professional and so perfect and polished, and just to be like how you would? Is there any like specific feedback that you learned through podcasting or from coming out or whatever that supports us to just own who we are and be better at podcasting so our listener can love us for who we are?
I think that the best thing that I can tell you in that sense is that to do your podcast and say those things when you are ready, so people does not realize that there is a change in yourself, that they started being someone and they became another person. I'm really sure if I will ever discover the podcasting world before the time that I discovered how to do it and all of that, I was going to say I was not ready. I'm struggling with a couple stuff that will not make me enabled to show people the real person that I am. At the end of the day, as you said, that when you are open and very transparent with somebody by the very first time and that first impression, that will make the person to think, am I gonna follow, am I gonna stay with this person along the way, yes or no? Because that very first impression that you give them is very important. But at the end of the day, you have to maintain and stay within this parameter. Will they still love you, or will they still hate you? They will probably hate you. So that's why it's really important to set up the space at the beginning and being that person. And if you don't feel comfortable, then you will have to redesign your podcast, probably do another podcast or something like that, because listeners, the beginner listeners, that, those original ones will probably not continue because they have seen something that they probably not resonate with them. So my best advice will be to be yourself since the beginning and make sure when you actually launch it that is exactly who you are and that is exactly what you're going to be talking about. And that the most important part for all of this for me is the word passion. You have to have passion for what you are going to do, because if there's no passion, people will actually feel that.
All right. That was really good. Out of curiosity, what would you like to leave the listener? If we wrap up the conversation right now, and we discussed in the beginning that the goal of this podcast is cohesive branding and understanding how to be that person or that brand with colors and shapes and sizes and talking points and even personality from the beginning to the middle to the end. When we discussed that, Jesus, what was in your mind that you knew you wanted to share passionately, because you got to have passion, that we haven't yet had a chance to mention to the listener?
do your research.
What does that mean? Like reconnaissance of other podcasts before you launch, or?
Research in terms of how to put it together. I'm a podcaster that I avoid to listen to other podcasters. And because I don't want to copy anyone. I want to be myself and I want to be my version of a podcaster. I may listen to others just if there's something like this, what you do, like tips and stuff that I can, take for my podcast. But any other podcast within the same range of the podcast that I do, I try to avoid them because I want to be myself and my podcast to be really unique. So it is important to do your research in terms of like putting it together. You don't have to hurry up. There's no need to hurry up. Many of the times you need time to think all these kind of things because on the way you will learn others that you may probably will not want to know under 100 episodes or something like that. So it is good to sit down. And as I said, the most important tip I think is like do your research, sit down. It is possible to be done. It is not impossible. This is completely, let's say, user-friendly to do it. This is something that you can do, but have in mind that there are going to be some points on the way and the kind of like timeline that you propose yourself that you're going to be a little stuck and you may need some input from other professionals that might help you. But that is why it is important to do your research.
This has been a podcast episode that's been fun, enjoyable, enlightening, and just a cool way to think of new things as well for me with Jesus Hernandez, a.k.a. Yeveah Altieri. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeveah Altieri. That's my podcast.
So don't even worry if you are less... What's the word? If you're whiter than me, I don't know if that's the best way to say it, or if you're not Spanish speaking and you have at least as hard time as I have saying the right accent, then don't even worry because the link is in the show notes. You just scroll down and regardless if you can pronounce it, you can still click on it. So there's that. Jesus, thanks for jumping on the podcast and supporting us and pouring into us with passion and helping us think through the importance of having a more cohesive brand all the way through, from the way that our logo is, the colors that we use, the fonts, the shapes and sizes, the music, just all of the things that go into keeping that cohesive. I think it's important that we spend a little bit of time considering how to do that a little bit better. So really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you go, brother. All right. Bye for now. Thank you. 2 quick things before you go. Number 1, if you are looking to upgrade like your podcast equipment or just get your very first affordable microphone, then go to growyourshow.com/PDF. That link's in the show notes. Go ahead and scroll down. On that PDF is 100% equipment for your podcasting studio that I've personally vetted. My team has vetted this. We know that it works. We know that it's affordable, and we don't want you paying more for your podcasting equipment. So again, if you're looking to upgrade your equipment or get your very first inexpensive microphone that works great, that's where you go. And then number 2 is got a free course, A to Z, on everything you need to know about podcasting, and you don't have to go anywhere but the podcast in order to access it. You don't have to even give me an email address to access it. It is just the very first 6 episodes of this podcast. So what you'll do is you'll scroll down a bit, you'll click on all episodes and scroll down because we're hundreds of episodes in, and you'll see that episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is a free course from A to Z on launching a top podcast. Take advantage of those 2 things. I'll see you on the next episode.